Joshua Smith here, and welcome to the GSD Mode podcast. Now get shit done and smash that subscribe button now. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast interview where every single week I interview top badass that they're dominating their space. And today, guys, we got another amazing rock star guest here on the podcast. To give you guys just a quick background before we jump in here, our guest today, you guys, got into entrepreneurship when he was, and maybe it was before this, but the knowledge that I have was, or at least is, while he was in college, started getting into flipping homes to be able to pay for his way through school. Got into, that was kind of his first exposure, I guess, potentially to real estate and again, flipping homes. That then led to him working for a luxury builder and getting in that industry. And this was, in the early 2000s, and we all know what happened. The market was nuts. And then 2007, 2008 hit, and then bam, it disrupted every market out there. And at that point, he decided to pivot and shift and really find his true calling, which became being a true entrepreneur and helping others go out there and create successful businesses, and started seeking that path. And now that's led him down this 20 plus years of his entrepreneur journey. And today, you guys, is an international best-selling author. I just bought his book. We'll talk about his book here. Badass book that you guys all need to go get and read. It's free, right? Which we'll talk about. But best-selling author, owner and founder of Think Bigger Coaching, and also a fellow podcast host. And he is the host of Think Bigger podcast. So stoked and honored to have Justin Stoddart in the show. My friend.
Hey, what's up, man? Total pleasure to be here. I love it. This is super fun to be here with you. After years and years of admiring you from afar, it's fun to be like, AK in studio, like riffing. Let's do it, man.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this COVID-19 shit will be over so we can start doing some of that in studio again, man. I don't know about you, dude, but I don't know. Do you know much about the disc?
Yeah.
So I'm a 99D, 98C, but I'm a 10I. And so I enjoy that solitude, man. But for the first time I can think of ever in my life, dude, I am just craving being around people. I can't just wait till it's like, now that we've got that kind of, I don't want to say robbed, but it's, it's not a part of most of our lives right now. It's like, man, I just can't wait, dude.
Yeah.
It's going to be epic. So, man, I'm stoked and excited to have you on, dude. It's such a small world, man, how things work out. And we got connected through a mutual friend and, and so forth. And I just love it, dude. So, let's, I always been really intrigued in our guest journeys that led him here in the first place. And I kind of went through some of the backstory and so forth, but, I'm intrigued in, when you were in college, what led you into getting into flipping homes, right? I don't know too many college kids that are like, oh, let me just go out there and start flipping homes and, doing that path that then, leads into a successful, career with builders and so forth. But how'd that begin in the first place, dude?
I think if you look back at your life, typically every good thing that comes is preceded by a difficult time. And I think for any that are going through a difficult time right now, there should be some silver lining, some hope on the horizon, being like, okay, good. So what he's telling me is that if I'm going through a hard time right now, this is all a precursor to something good happening. And, my parents went through a divorce. Family was kind of my life. My parents went through a divorce. My dad remarried. He happened to marry a real estate agent. And very first thing out of their mouth, I just returned home from a church mission, and they were like, we should flip homes together. And I was like, okay, that sounds fun. And really with their expertise, I was just kind of like a willing participant. And all of a sudden I was like, dang, I was at the same time working early mornings to get insurance, loading trucks for UPS. And I would make like $15 an hour, right? And then we'd go out and we'd flip a home in 45 days and make 10, 15, 20 grand. I was like, whoa, there's a different way to make money here, right? Is that you can leverage other people's expertise, knowledge, you can leverage a network of people, you can leverage other people's money, and you can make a lot more money faster by doing that than by punching the clock. So that's kind of how it all began for me. But again, it wasn't how I would have pictured it, right? I would have pictured my parents still being together, but that difficult time led me to some opportunities I wouldn't have thought of. As I was heading off to college, my stepmom said, you should be a builder and give me all the list backs. I had no idea what that meant. I think she was planting a seed early on. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but I'll just nod my head like I do. And actually went off and actually went to a different state to go to school. And her words kind of rang through my ears. I was like, this real estate game was pretty awesome. I was now living in a different state to where it wasn't as easy to flip home. In fact, I couldn't do it when I was out of state. So I actually went and sought out a home builder. And I was like, tell me, I'm interested in this industry. How do I get started? Like, I'm willing to start framing homes so I can learn how this all goes together, because I'm seeing these big, beautiful homes. And he took like one look at me and he said, get in your car, follow me. He took me down and he'd started this technology company. It was an online plan room where people could put their blueprints and get bids from subcontractors. It was like a kind of a pretty innovative thing at that time, early 2000s. And he was like, I don't know that you're going to be that effective on a job site. You look more like an office guy. So from there, I was networking with a lot of different home builders, because my role was to go get them to put their blueprints online so that we could get our subcontractor community to bid it. And so in that process, I met a guy who was super charismatic, younger guy, building some of the more beautiful homes in the Valley. I was like, I got to get to know this guy. So he like within a couple months, he offered me to come work for him. So I was managing projects and really learned how to build homes, switched my major at school to be construction management. Because I was like, I don't really know how to do this, but he's teaching me how, and if I could learn it at school as well, it was good enough with people that I could figure it out. So that was kind of how I got into the building industry, and I realized, like, man, this is a lot of fun, until all of a sudden it wasn't, right? Actually, I worked for him for a while. He began to move his business to land development. I left and started my own company, did that for a number of years, and then all of a sudden the market started to turn hard. And I realized I kind of had to do like a gut check, right? Like, again, kind of back to those difficult circumstances. It's like, if I love building homes, like love it, I'll wait this out. I'll switch to remodels. I'll do what I need to do. But at that point I was like, even when the market was great, I loved the business of home building. I didn't love managing subcontractors. So anyway, long story short, I had to like really do some introspective work to find out, like, I actually love building people. I love communicating with people. I love leading people. I love teaching people. And I can find bits and pieces of that in the building industry. But if I could pivot and have my entire career on developing people instead of land, building businesses instead of homes, I'd be a happy camper, right? And that's really me looking back saying that, like, I came to this conclusion, but it was a journey, right? Kind of figuring that out. But that's how I got into the industry and got exposed to the power of real estate, to the power of the entrepreneurial spirit inside of the real estate industry, which I love. And then just coupled that with my passion of really, developing people.
Yeah. Love it, dude. Love it, man. So then, when you were in that moment of, when the market crashed and the world was just, those that didn't experience it, you can't even articulate in words, like just how quick and crazy and nasty it got, I went from one day of selling hundreds of traditional homes a year with my team, and life is good, to it felt like overnight now, like my job is to go out there and deliver foreclosure notices and evict people for their homes, representing the banks. And it was just such a crazy world, dude. But I'm really curious, man, of, because good a lot of times becomes the worst enemy to greatness, right? And it sounds like that the construction career, you enjoyed flipping homes, you enjoyed building them, maybe it wasn't your true passion, your true calling, and thank God, I guess the market crash happened, right? Because if it didn't, you probably would, still be, be in that space.
Totally.
But what I'm curious about is, how did you know if like what kind of work did you do, and how did you get clarity on knowing if you really wanted to be there, and not allowing it to like blind your mental, I guess, thoughts and whatever of, because a lot of times, like, we enjoy things when they're going well, but when they get challenging, like, we can have, negative thoughts that aren't necessarily, right? Like, so like, I'm just really curious about that process of like how you went to that. Cause I think so many people, dude, get stuck in that good enough rut for all aspects of their life. And unless, and this is held true for me, unless like there's a lot of pain that's delivered to wake you up, a lot of people just never wake up, man. And, so I'm just curious of how you went through that discovery process, dude.
I'm going to compare this. I've got 4 daughters, 2 sons, 4 daughters, and they're not quite to the age of dating yet. Thankfully, I'm going to be a busy guy on like security patrol once they do, because they're pretty cute. But I've something that was taught to me as I was ultimately looking for, my spouse, is like date and get qualities of things that you like in people. Like, don't commit like forever until you actually have a chance to date people. Get to know some qualities, some attributes that you like about these people, and then become those attributes. Become that person that ultimately is that has those characteristics. And I think to your question, Josh, which is a great one of how do you find that passion? How do you find that? How do you wake yourself up to be like, this is really where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I think you've really got to examine and realize that there's never going to be a perfect spouse. And if there were, they wouldn't want anything to do with you. Like, no offense, right? All of us. But to realize that there are some key attributes that you really want in a person, just like you want in a career, right? It's never going to be perfectly easy. It's never going to be like, there's going to be some difficulty. There's going to be some hard things. But what ultimately like lights you up? Like, what are the things that are really important to you? And I always teach people that, like, the importance of, like, you're writing your own story. You're writing your own book. Nobody wrote it for you and said, this is the way it has to turn out. Maybe when you were born, it looked that way, but now you're holding the pen. You get to write, right? You get to write the story. So find those attributes, those parts that you like. And maybe in real estate, right? It's like, I love listings, or I love buyers. Like, craft your position to where you are so fired up to go do what you have to do. Otherwise, you're not going to put your whole soul into it. You'll never really wake up. And so again, that same pattern of kind of finding the right life partner, I think, can really be applied to your career. Even if it's in the same industry, it's craft something that really you feel like your very highest and best use, right? We hear that in real estate, is utilized day in and day out. And that's what I realized with the construction industry. It wasn't that for me. Like, my highest and best use was utilized very little. And I've since now found really what lights me up and my highest and best use, right? So I think that's kind of how I came to that conclusion. And in that process of realizing that maybe the construction industry wasn't for me, I still had to figure out how to survive until I could get to my next thing. And that's really kind of where the inception of the upstream model came to be, is I started to realize that there's a way to get business that's different than what other people are doing, that's more effective. You can get more get further down the path with less effort. And so anyway, that's, again, kind of looking at some of those difficult times, some of life's biggest lessons come out of that.
Yeah, I love it, dude. 100%, man. So, and I'm going to, just want to stay on this, topic here for a moment, just because, this is what you do all day long. Not only did you, it's funny how, most entrepreneurs, it ends up just being, you had a problem personally, you solved that at such a high level, then others start seeking to you to help them solve that same problem. You develop a love for it. And, but now it's at the point of not only have you been through this, a leveling up journey and this clarity journey and really, really identifying your true life's passion, at least when it comes to your career and, what you're going to devote the work portion of your life to, if you will. But you help clients do this all the time, right? With your coaching clients and your coaching company. So with that being said, man, and I had this happen to me. It took a long time for me, right? I'd go read these books and they're like, oh, well, find your, just tap into your superpower. Like when you mention, your highest, and best use, or your highest purpose, or whatever that is. I can't remember exactly how you stated that there, but dude, when I would read that stuff, it took a lot of reflection, a lot of years, and a lot of self-discovery for me. But it was like, dude, I have no idea what my true strengths are, what my gifts are, and I know a lot of people struggle with that, dude. When people are talking about that, of what are your unique abilities? What can you apply to, So if somebody's listening to this, because a lot of people right now through this COVID-19 thing, dude, is, are mentally down, right? So a lot of people are, struggling, I think, in a lot of different aspects right now, from that mental standpoint. So if somebody's having a difficult time of really being able to tap into that, what kind of advice do you give them? Is it just time? Is it just a process, or is there some framework that you walk them through?
Yeah. So I would say that a personal journal, right? Oftentimes we think of a journal as it's Dear Diary and it's for teenage girls writing about their crush. Like a journal is, in my opinion, one of the more powerful tools, underutilized tools out there. I've got a pretty rigid morning routine. From 5 to 6 a.m., I have a pen in hand and I'm reading and writing. And it's really a spiritual journal, a spiritual journey for me. And I think sometimes people think that a spiritual journey has to be a religious journey, or it has to be you have to have a Bible in hand. It can be that, right? I'm not saying it can't, but it also doesn't have to be that, right? I think it can very much be you having a conversation with yourself, looking to your future self and asking that question of ultimately, if I were to fast forward 10 years from now and be super fired up about the life that I've created, what am I seeing? And start to get clarity on really where you're at, how you're feeling about it, where you want to be at, and kind of like how you would feel about that. And then you start to almost, your subconscious and even your conscious mind starts to kind of build this path and this bridge. You start to realize that, oh boy, there's a chasm there. I don't know how to get across that. And so as soon as you start to really get comfortable with, this is who I am, this is where I'm at, this is ultimately the life I want to create, then you need to go do the work to go meet people, to read. And I recommend 10 pages a day and at least one interview a day. When I say interview, it's just conversations with people, finding out what they do, what's happening in their world. And until you discover your passion, you need to be like interviewing and talking to people that are passionate about what they're doing. And that will start to help you kind of find that spark, find that like, oh man, I would love to be doing that for a living, right? I would love to be like whatever, right? You insert that in. But I think it's introspective work. And then I think it's also out interacting with people and asking good questions and being super curious about their journey and their impact and the life that they get to lead. Because again, you're the author, you hold the pen, and there's other people that have written books that you would love to live out. So go talk to them, ask them how they did it, and see if that jives with kind of the person who you want to become.
Yeah, no, I love it, dude. Yeah, I mean, it's an intentional process. You know, it's just like somebody, okay, hey man, I want to figure out my life's passion. You know, right? It's kind of like, oh, I want to get in shape. Well, you're not going to get in shape by just saying you want to get in shape. Like you got to, start being intentional and working, like working out, being intentional with your meal prep, make it like it becomes a daily thing. Yeah. And if that's practice over and over and over, boom, it pops. But then I think where a lot of people go wrong with this but just like working out, like, okay, once I get in the shape I want to get into, I can't stop. Yeah. I'll go revert right back to my old ways, right? It's always that, like at one point, if you would ask me, I don't know, 8 to 10 years ago, like what I wanted most, like long-term career-wise, like that question that you just asked in like 5 years, where would you be? I'd be like, dude, a high-paid, like on-stage speaker, right? Like making $50,000 keynotes, whatever. Like I thought that would be the best thing on the planet. And started making that a reality, started getting on stages. I never got paid $50,000 for a keynote, but, but I started getting on the speaking circuit and doing that. And then I was like, dude, this sucks. Like sometimes you don't know until you go out there and try. You gotta, it's just like a split test with a marketing campaign. We have split tests with our life too. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you experience it. And then you're journaling, you're paying attention. Okay, well now I know it doesn't work. Let me try this thing.
Dude, I freaking love that, Josh. I'm so glad you said that because you're right. Oftentimes, oftentimes the best answers to life's biggest questions comes by moving your freaking feet, right? It's not just about getting clear in the morning with a pen in hand. Like that's the starting point, but then you've got to go do something. And sometimes there's a great story actually of a guy and his son. They were in a pickup truck and they were driving and it was getting dark. It's like, okay, like in fact, they were out kind of amongst these red rocks and they're like, okay, it's time to go home. It's getting dark. And they got to a junction in the road and it's like, crap, where do we go? And we don't have a lot of time. We got to figure this out quickly. And so they both felt pretty strong. Let's go to the right. And they got down and it dead ended. And they're like, I wonder why we felt like really we should go that way. And as they came back and started going down the correct path, there was this realization that oftentimes we go down a wrong path. So we know that it was the wrong path, right? And that way we can close that door and we can say, you know what? I tried, that absolutely wasn't for me. And here's why, here's the attributes of that particular career path that I didn't like. And now I'm more confident than ever. I can really pour myself into this without looking back, without hesitation. And so to your point, you have to move your feet. And sometimes, again, the best answers come by hitting a wall, right? By screwing up a little bit. And that either makes you stronger to get over the wall or like helps you to realize, that's actually not the life that I want.
Yep. I love it, dude. Yep. 100%, man. And, with that though, dude, like you gotta be, and well, I'll circle back to your point of there's no shortage of books, content, information on what to do. But it's almost impossible. I shouldn't say impossible, but it's very difficult. And there's a shortage of information on what not to do, right? So, again, we got to go through those but when you have that awareness, you can course correct fast and, so forth. But then, for that, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, this is just I'm not the expert here on this. It's just, my best guess from my own personal experiences, is that to be able to really go down this journey and really to truly start thinking bigger and like write your own story at a high level and just get the most out of this precious gift called life that we've all been blessed with, right? And not just sleepwalk through life.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to be mentally prepared for it, right? Like meaning like you got to be like people have such a difficult time with failure. I tried this, it didn't work. I'm going to try this other thing, it didn't work. And then I tried this thing, it didn't work. And, right. But you got to be willing to keep those trying, but not get discouraged. Like Winston Churchill, said, I don't remember the exact quote, but something like, success is being able to go from, failure to failure or go through hell or whatever, but not lose, that inspiration. I totally botched that quote, yeah. But you got to keep persevering through this. So, at the core, like, what would you tell people of that kind of perspective shift to be able to have the right perspective to continue on this journey and this path without getting discouraged? Because, dude, I'm sure you've had this bazillion times too, man. There's naysayers. There's people that talk shit, right? They're celebrating when you fall down, right? And it can it can be a mentally challenging time to keep persevering through it.
Yeah. It's funny. I did a video about this yesterday that I think will kind of speak to this, is that it's a lot of agents right now, I think, are really struggling because it's a tight market, right? Everyone thinks, the real estate market's hot. Realtors are making all kinds of money. I'll tell you what, listing agents are working harder than they've ever worked before, right? They're reviewing how many offers, telling how many people know. Buyers agents, right, are, their dollar per hour is being deeply watered down because of the number of offers that oftentimes they're having to submit. And it could be a real time for people to be really discouraged and wonder if this is for them. If you felt that this is your path, but it's hard, I want you to bear with me for just a minute here, but like that is actually really good news, because the reality is the real estate market's a fairly crowded space, and you enter in these kind of big tech portals and all of a sudden it's even more crowded because they're eating up market share. And you have to realize that when it gets hard, most people aren't good at persevering. Most people, when pain is inflicted, they want out. Uncle, like I mean, we see it in fitness and exercise, right? Most people are not willing to endure pain. So if you're feeling pain, it may seem like a really bad thing, but just trust me, it's not that. It's one, you're not going to die, okay? And number two, it's weeding out the herd. Like, it's thinning the herd. Like, most people, if everyone's feeling pain, then guess what? Most people aren't going to stay there for very long. And if you can realize and have this mindset shift of like, this is actually growing me. One, I'm going to be one of very few standing, number one. And number two, coming through this, I'm going to have such mental fortitude, such better skills. I'm going to be able to sacrifice when it comes to my expenses, when it comes to my free time, because I've got to do more activities. Again, most people aren't willing to do that. You're going to have the disciplines to really excel, to where as soon as things loosen up a little bit, you're going to have, like, your market share is going to jump. I've seen, in fact, one of my favorite clients, he talks about how he got into the industry in 2008. He didn't know any different, right? And as soon as things, and he just kind of plugged along and did okay. It was hard for everybody. 2012, 13, he blew up, right? Sells 300 homes a year now. And it's because he was trained in Navy SEAL camp, right? He was trained when it was really hard. He didn't know any different. And so we have to just have that perspective of like, if it's hard, it's okay. Hard isn't always bad. Hard is oftentimes good, right? If we know that we're on the right path and we have some idea that this is actually where we want to be long-term, then just, if you can just hang in there and absorb the growth that's happening, you're going to be in a great spot, man. That's where winners are made, right there.
Yeah, love it, dude. Yeah, it's so funny, man. I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine, just yesterday. Tuesday, sorry. But we were talking about the same thing of pain and pain and power coming from the same place and so forth. And I just, boom, this analogy just came in my head. I'm like, when we were speaking to some coaching clients of ours, but it was like, don't rob yourself of the pain, man. Don't rob yourself of that journey, right? And the analogy I came up with or gave was like, all right, dude, people that go climb Mount Everest, right? Like if it was just all about getting on top of that mountain and looking at the view, people would just go pay for the helicopter ride and get right up there and then look off and then, right. And just be done. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. But they don't do that. I'm sure there's some, but like people train for years and pay 60, 70 grand for guides and, go through the, hell and back of the hiking up there and all that pain they got to push through and all those challenges they got to get through to get to the top. But once they get through that, that's what makes the fucking, the view so beautiful is getting through that pain, right? Like you never talk to anybody that's like, oh, I made it to the top of Mount Everest by helicopter and like was blown away by the experience. Right. It's right. And that's what I love about business and what I love about health and fitness is like, look, it can't be bought, dude. Like you gotta go through the pain, you gotta go through the struggle, but that's how you're forged, man. Right. Dude, I love it, man.
Well, and I think the real gift isn't even so much the view, right? It's been said, I think it was Jim Rohn that said, like everybody should make $1 million, not because of the $1 million, but because of who you have to become to earn $1 million, right? And the same thing with Everest or any other challenge is like, at the end of this life, like none of that other, like what really matters is the person you've become, the impact that you've had upon people. And so it's like, like if we like water avoid any difficulty, we have to go around it. Like at the end, like we don't have a lot to show for ourselves, right? But if we can say, boy, I did these hard things, whether it be climbing Everest or persisting during a challenging market, or left a comfortable job and started a business, all of those things turn us into something that allow us to then impact people in greater ways. So, man, 100% agree. Love your analogy.
Yeah, dude. So I'm curious with like what has been the most surprising, things that changes, shifts, right? Because like you just talked about, successes or creating success isn't a doing process, it's a becoming process, right? Is another Jim Rohn saying, and you on that journey, you become somebody totally different. Right. And there's things that maybe stay the same, but there's a lot that is different. Like what has been some of the biggest things, or even if it's one or there's several, overall changes in your, almost 2-decade journey now of thinking bigger and leveling up and, going through this becoming process.
Yeah. I think, it's never very sexy when you're in the middle of it. I think we tend to look at life. Like my mom gave me this analogy. She said, life is like a tapestry. Like we're on the back side of the tapestry where all you have is knots and like snags. And it just doesn't look very pretty. Right. And I think as we go through our day-to-day life, we're oftentimes, especially with social media now, we're looking at everyone else's highlight reel, yet we've got kind of behind the curtain staff changing clothes. Like it's just ugly, right? It's just kind of like, it's the different perspective and a different view. And it's, at the end of this life or even at different points, I think we stop and we walk, we're brought around to take a look at the front of the tapestry. And we're like, holy crap, that's actually pretty. All this time I thought it was ugly. I thought it was screwing up. I thought it was like, I didn't think I was doing very well. But again, if you stay the course, right, seek out great knowledge, seek out great mentors, seek out great networks of people that are helping you grow, and trust the process and realize that it, like, to you, it's never going to look very beautiful, right? But at some point you're going to be able to look back and be like, wow, though all those knots, all those snags, like all of that was turning me into somebody that was kind of weaved together to be somebody beautiful, right? Somebody that could really help and impact the world in great ways. I think that's been part of it, is the fact that sometimes I'll be like, man, that was a gnarly part of life, right? When the building industry was going down, or I took a stab at network marketing, I was like, oh man, that's almost just embarrassing to talk about. Like, it's just like wasn't very good. My wife was having to like pay the bills. Like, it was like, you don't want to tell people about it because it's terrible. And I don't know that everybody needs to necessarily hear that, but that's oftentimes where people relate to you, is they're like, man, I went through that crap too. And then you realize that those are the times when you grew the fastest, right? I mean, it's like, I'm looking at your biceps and I'm super envious, man. And those were not made by just sitting around, right? Like, you had to go through some tough crap. And now you're like, dude, I got some freaking guns. But guess what? There was a lot of like early mornings and probably late nights and like diet restrictions that no one else was willing to do. And all of that led up to now you can impact people in a big way, right? Both fitness and just inspiration. So I would say just trust the journey. And again, back to that kind of same theme of like, hard is okay. Hard is okay.
Yeah. And then and Steve Jobs always talked about this. So you got to learn to fall in love with the process. And I don't know if you ever follow Andrew, I think it's Andrew Huberman. There's this brilliant neuroscientist, and he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, how I first got introduced to him. But like, this dude's at Stanford, and they're like bringing in, like, he hooks up like David Goggins to all these machines, all these Navy SEALs, and like it's just studying the brain chemistry and dopamine and in ways that we can tap into that, and so forth. And I mean, and there's just so much neuroscience around the true key to I guess I'm not a neuroscientist, so I don't know the terms, but the happis hormones, if you will, like the true fulfillment hormones that get released, and that we, with all the research that they've done, is, it is about, again, attaching to the process, right? Because if you don't learn to love that, all of a sudden you get to the end destination and you're like, you're massively unsatisfied, and it gets you in this negative spiral loop, Yeah. So, all right, dude. So, changing paths here a little bit. I'm really curious with, so you got the upstream model, and so those that you can't see that, or maybe are listening to this in the call, right? But upstream model, kind of subtitle is Hidden Secrets to Building a Massive Referral Business While Crushing Big Tech Companies. And what I love about you, dude, one reason I was really excited to have you out here on the podcast is, I mean, you coach entrepreneurs from all different fields, right? Because of your real estate background and your love and passion for real estate. I mean, you coach a lot of real estate agents, team leaders, broker owners, and people tied to this industry, but you also coach, so many entrepreneurs outside of real estate and other niches and so forth. And, a lot of times we get tunnel vision. Like, we think that like something maybe only works in our industry, or somebody's doing something in another industry. Oh, that doesn't work in my industry. And, people get this, it's one of the worst things that we as business owners can do. It's like, business is business. What works in one industry typically works the same in the other industry. Might need to change messaging a little bit, whatever. But dude, this is such a relevant time to come out, right? And I'm sure all industries are experiencing this, but I know real estate, right? It's all I've done in my entrepreneurial career. I mean, you got Zillow doing those shit they're doing. You got, all these iBuyers. You got, you got so many massive tech companies that have billions of dollars that they may not say this publicly, but their mission is to eliminate the real estate agent, right? And we got to be prepared to combat it. And we got to be, we got to be smarter with the way that we do business going forward, man. If we become a commodity and lose that relationship component, and we allow it to go to a transactional business and we just become a commodity, like, we're not going to make it. And that I don't know, as a crystal ball, but that's my belief. Right. So I'm so excited to talk to you about this and dive deep into this. But like, how did you discover this, dude? Like, how did this? Yeah. I know that this again started with you just solving your own problem and attracting business in a different way for yourself.
Yeah, it really started off as a home builder. I was 25 at the time, Josh, and I was trying to encourage or win over custom home clients and get them to entrust a 25-year-old kid that looked like he was 18 at the time to with $2 million to build them their dream home. And it was like, going direct to consumer is tricky, right? Because especially when I was in that kind of disadvantaged spot, maybe there's agents out there, whether you're in real estate, insurance, wealth management, where you're asking yourself, you're saying, you know what, I feel like I'm at a disadvantage. I've got agents around me whose signs are all over my neighborhood. I don't know if I can win this game. That's where I was at. And I realized that there's got to be a better way to get business. And I realized, like, okay, who knows that a home is going to be built before these clients start talking to a home builder? And I realized architects were upstream from me. They had deep relationships with their clients. They've been working with them. And as soon as the plans were about done, the architects started to ask the homeowners, these custom home clients, who do you want to have bid on the project? So I realized, you know what, if I could go approach architects and get in good with them, that was going to be a good lead source, right? And my first approach was totally botched. It went in and it was all about me. What can I get from this architect? And so I had identified a partner who was a bit of a fortune teller, meaning that they had a crystal ball telling me when people were going to be needing a builder. But I went at it totally wrong. And I think if, like, whatever industry you're in, let's say you're in real estate and you're like, you know what, I've heard that there are lenders or builders or wealth managers or property and casualty insurance agents or painters or whatever that can send me referrals, I'm going to go talk to them. The problem is you may have identified a great source that could give you not 1 or 2 referrals a year, but 1 or 2 a month, like legitimately. I have clients who this is happening for them. But you have then, like, the approach, however, is oftentimes broken because you'll go in with your hand out as a vendor saying, hey, I'm a really good real estate agent. Here's all the reasons why you should refer me. That's what I did as a builder, Josh. I went to these architects and I said, look, I'm a really good builder. I built these homes. Here's some testimonials. And the architect was like, great, thanks. You're not solving a problem that I actually have right now. I know a lot of builders and they all say good things about themselves. And so it didn't work. So I had to go back and I had to say, you know what? What's my ultimate goal here? My ultimate goal is to get business from this person. However, if I come to get, I'm not going to get. If I come to give, it's going to be a totally different scenario. So I then had to get creative on how I could approach an architect and get them to want to send me business. Not because they knew me, liked me, trust me. That's the old model. It works, but it's super slow. But if I could get that architect to say, I want every one of my clients to meet this builder because it makes me look better. It improves my client experience. I'm better able to do my job and serve more clients because of him, right? That was the approach, and it worked. And I had architects who were proactively introducing me to most, if not all, their clients. So same thing with real estate, right? Is the fact that, again, there are upstream partners. I rattled off a few. There are many more who you have to ask the question, this is the upstream question, which is, who knows that a home is going to be bought or sold before that client ever talks to a real estate agent? And are there people out there that know that? Yes, there are. I'll give you one example. Wealth managers, for example. I've interviewed dozens of them. Unanimously, they say, yeah, I know with almost all my clients, I know when they're going to be selling their home and buying another one. They come to me. I'm their wealth manager. We're talking about these things. And they're proactively seeking these things out. I said, great. How many of these clients do you have? Probably 12 to 24 a year. Okay, cool. Are you referring that business to a real estate agent? Nope. Almost unanimously, wealth managers had the ability to pass, call it 18 warm referrals that would convert at a really high level because it's coming from someone they highly trust, that they've entrusted all of their money with, and they're not referring it. So I then dug into the question of why not? Why are you not referring this business to a real estate agent? And came up with some very foundational things that are really slight tweaks when you understand it. But to a wealth manager, it's a pretty big deal. Like, it's a pretty big reason why they're not referring it. But as soon as you can flip that switch and help them to see that, like, oh, you're like, I'm not just going to give this to you with the risk that maybe you'll screw up, but like, you're going to make my client experience better. You're going to help me secure my client. You're going to help these clients love me even more. Then you bet. Then I want to put you in front of my clients, not because I know you, like you, trust you, right? But it's because it's good for me, the wealth manager. So that's really kind of an example of what the upstream model can do. And I've had clients who now, they'll close, a dozen to 2 dozen deals a year that are warm, from one referral partner. And you look in your database and say, which one of my past clients is going to send me like a dozen to 2 dozen deals a year? Well, none of them. Like a year, maybe in their lifetime, maybe, but no. And you start to take a look at, boy, I could really start to redefine within my database and put very critical partners that are upstream from me, add massive value to their business, not show up as a solicitor, but show up as a mentor and as a leader to them, to where they want to introduce me to all of their clients because of the value that I bring to them and to those clients. And it changes the game. All of a sudden, you can now have a relationship-based business, a referral business. People will pay for you and wait for you, unlike a Zillow lead. And in addition to that, these people will convert at a very high level, right? And it's scalable, right? Because these people, you're not hoping that this past client remembers you and talks to you about their mom. Every one of their clients that they're meeting with all day, every day has the potential to be a client of yours.
Yeah, no, I love it, dude. It's so powerful, man. I was just talking with my top agent on my team, and we were in our monthly, company meeting, team meeting, and I asked her for everybody. I'm like, because I was talking about like focusing on the lifetime value of a client, right? Because everybody's bitching right now of how long it takes to get a home buyer into a house, and I'm like, well, you guys are thinking too short-sighted. Right? Yeah, it might take 10 times as long, but you got to think about that value of that client isn't the 10 grand commission that you're going to make. It's the 150 grand or more that you'll make over that lifetime value if you position this right. And So I asked, because our top agent and the team gets a lot of referrals, and I asked her like, okay, your top referrer out of everybody, like how many have they sent you already year to date? And it was like 6, right? I mean, this was like our March 1st meeting, dude, right? So that was in the first 2 months, right?
Very good.
Well, it happens to be that person's like the like head of recruiting, so he oversees all the recruiters for the local National Guard. So they see people come and go, and right. So you don't always get those kind of I don't say unicorns, but there's the 80-20 rule applies to everything, right? But when we start making that list, dude, I mean, shit, like you talk about architects, right? You got
as a builder, an architect was a great one, right? For your audience, right? Real estate agents. It's a little bit different audience, but wealth managers,
right? You got probate attorneys, you got divorce attorneys, you got. Like we could all go make insane, like HR, head of human resource at any like right, like I don't know, a mile from my house, Red Bull, their world headquarters is being built. Okay, I could go in there and develop a relationship with the head of HR. So many people are going to be relocating here from there, and so if we all sat down, we could all start making a list of probably at least 100 of these, right? Like get your, as Russell Brunson always says, get your dream 100. Right. Then from there. And I know it's going to be different probably for each person because an architect's needs might be different than, I don't know, a divorce attorney, right? Or whatever. But like, what are the ways then, because you talked about kind of the old school, get people to know you, like you, trust you, kind of the Dale Carnegie, how to win friends and influence people. But it sounds like you were really tapping into like human behavior and law of reciprocity is the most powerful law of influence. It sounds like you are looking and intentionally figuring out how do I first add value to this person's life in such a way that they now feel they must reciprocate, and not only do they want to reciprocate, they're looking for ways to reciprocate because you've added a lot of value to their life. And so like from an overall that could apply to, it doesn't matter what this, let's just say, advocate is in their upstream model or whatever. Like what are ways, or if you have some framework, dude, that can kind of apply to each person of, okay, how do you go figure out like what they need, and then how do you position yourself? And
great question. So the first thing is really to change your identity, right? Because the reality is they're not giving those 18 warm referrals a year to an agent for a reason. And it's nothing personal. It's just the fact that they have, they've decided that real estate agents don't bring excessive value to their clients or don't bring excessive value to them. And that the risk of them referring somebody that doesn't do a great job is higher than the benefit of referring somebody that does a great job. And so you have to come in, if they've decided that, like collectively for the entire industry, job number one is that you have to come in with a different identity than I'm a really good agent. I help people buy and sell and market homes. And I got really good customer service. And I've been in the industry for this long. Like that's the typical that they've already said no to, right? So you can't come in and try that pitch and that spiel. In fact, you shouldn't even approach them as a solicitor. And I think that's kind of one of the things I talk about in the book is this progression of when you come in like that, you're a vendor, right? And having been in the title industry, I've understood that immediately there's this, you're this role, therefore you are looking to do this, therefore I'll classify and categorize you with everybody else that is also in that role. Like they've decided for you who you are. You have to do a pattern interrupt, right? You have to help them to see that you're not like everybody else. Therefore, they should listen to you. And first and foremost, the fastest way to do that is to have it not be you that's saying it, right? Because people are always a little disbelieving of somebody's pitch because obviously we're biased and we're going to say things about ourselves that they don't know. So one of the first approaches is to look through your database. I would say step number one would be to identify somebody, like some category of professional that you feel like you'd like to work closely with, right? We've rattled off a bunch of them, whether it's a divorce attorney, whether it's an estate attorney, whether it's a property and casualty insurance agent, whether it's a wealth manager, whatever it may be. And then say, okay, do I already know one? Okay. If not, or do I know one that I would really want to enter into this relationship with? Let's say that the answer is no. It should not be to go to Google and try and Google one and find, like, it should be to go to your very best clients, the ones that love you and recognize that there's a difference between you and the other professionals. And then you say, look, I'm looking to add more value to my client experience. I've found that by having a really great wealth manager to whom I could refer when clients are closing on the sale of their property and they've got a large sum of money, I want the best person out there to be able to give advice and counsel to my clients on what to do with that money, right? So you're creating this narrative that's true, that I'm leveling up my level of customer service to you and all my other clients. And then you simply ask them, you guys seem like the type of people that are very well networked and would have a great financial advisor. I'm currently interviewing to find out the very best in the area. Who should I be talking to? And so now you're asking for a warm referral to get introduced to an upstream partner. Because again, if you show up at their door like I did initially as a home builder to an architect, you're going to be seen as a solicitor and going to be categorized and lumped in with every other professional out there. So step one is get introduced to that person, and even to the point to where you can craft what they say about you. You say, look, I'm sure they know a lot of real estate agents and they all say this. Here's what I want you to say when you introduce me, is that I'm actually not a typical real estate agent. I'm a real estate advisor. Just like you manage people's wealth when it comes to the market, I manage people's wealth when it comes to real estate. We work very similarly, right? That's what you want someone else to say about you, to where they're like, a wealth manager for someone's real estate. That's interesting. It sounds like I need to talk to this. I don't know anybody that does that, right? So you're changing the narrative, but you're having someone else introduce that to you. Then once you have that warm introduction and the narrative is correct, now you can step into that meeting with one sole purpose. It's find out what they're struggling with so that you can show the fact that you're valuable to them and to their clients. Now you're going to get to know them. You're going to be nice. You're going to be all that stuff, right? But at the end of the day, your one goal in leaving that meeting is, what is a pain point that I can deliver on to where they say, man, my business would be better if I could have more contact with that guy or with that gal. And then with that one thing, you leave that meeting. Now you go to work on it. You pull in your network, your knowledge, everything you can do, and you follow up and say, look, I've got an idea. I heard what you said about this, how your clients are being poached by Robinhood. People are like doing crazy things with their money. I've got an idea for you, right? Or I've got someone who I'd like you to meet. And it's just an ongoing conversation about finding out what their problems are, solving their problems, right? Which is really what business is, but at a higher strategic level than any other real estate agent is out there. And the reality is, it's going to be something that probably has nothing to do with real estate or has very little to do. It's about showing that you're an equal to them. You're not a vendor there with your hand out to get business. You're a peer, if not even a mentor and a leader that can help them to their better, brighter future. And once they start to feel that, now you can start to give very specific things and ideas about how you can serve their clients, not asking for referrals yet, but you're finding ways to integrate yourself into their client experience, to where anytime that wealth manager is identifying that, hey, this person's moving, you're already in the conversation because you helped give that wealth manager the content to be able to talk about real estate. So I've kind of crammed a lot into a small space there, but hopefully that gives people some ideas of kind of where it goes wrong, why there are 18 warm referrals sitting on a wealth manager's desk that they're not giving to you or any other real estate agent for that matter.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Love it. I mean, I haven't built my business in the same intentional way like you have, with this, but it's 100% the approach that I've applied to getting mentors. Yeah. Right. It's like one of my mentors, Ryan Blair. I mean, he just sold his last company for $792 million. So this dude, he's done over $1 billion of business, starts and exits and in his early 40s. And I can't buy his time. I can't, right. So when but I take that same intentionality because we all have a way that we can help. Yeah. Right. What is the skill set that we have, or an introduction, or even if it's hey, I don't have any of those, but maybe I go find the charity that they're involved in. I volunteer for their charity there's always ways of doing that. And it's been massive, for the mentor front. And I can only imagine how massive this is when you apply it to, your what do you call them? Upstream advocate or upstream
partners. Yeah. Upstream partners.
So is there any, just in case somebody's struggling with this, is there any, specific questions that, like, if you're having a difficult time identifying what they're struggling with, right? But you want to make it in a way that it doesn't sound like you're, interrogating them. Yeah. Right. I mean, is it just, taking them out to lunch to learn more about them, their business and whatever, and just kind of asking them like, what do you love most about what you do? Why'd you get involved? Like almost like a podcast. Like what are your current biggest struggles? Right? And I mean, is there how are you pulling that out?
Yeah, I think one of the things to keep in mind is that if you're talking to the right person, they're going to be very cognizant of the time that they spend with you and any return on that time, right? To where this kind of, again, the old-fashioned method, which again works, but it just takes a long time, right? And I think people that are already really successful are not going to be able to commit a lot of time to go golfing and lunch and all of a sudden to see if there's an opportunity to work together. So in a very short period of time, we're going to have to identify the fact of how do I bring big ROI to this person in a very short window of time. And it really comes down to the fact that, yes, you want to get to their problem, but how do you get to that in a short period of time without sounding like interrogative, right? And I think the first thing to do is to compliment them, to say, look, I'm looking to find a partner to whom I can refer my clients, to whom I can lean on for expertise in your industry. And my clients that talked about you said some amazing things about you. Like, I just want you to know your reputation is pretty stellar. And get them talking about, and ask them, like, what do you think sets you apart from other professionals in your sphere? They know the answer to that, right? They know what makes them different. Get them talking about what's good, what's working. And then at that point, I think a way to uncover what isn't working is to say, with you being that, really offering that different and better value and service, what has been your biggest challenge in getting that message out to people? What's been the biggest challenge in really letting the marketplace know that you really do things different than the typical wealth manager? Now, you've found a way to uncover a problem through a compliment, if that makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. To where it doesn't sound so like, well, who are you to be asking what are my biggest problems and challenges? We just met like 10 minutes ago, dude. Who are you, right? But I think, again, complimenting them and then finding out like what's the biggest challenge and letting the world know how different you are, how much more valuable you are, right?
Yeah, because the cool thing is once you unpack that, I'm just thinking of questions that maybe those watching and listening might be thinking of, well, dude, I won't know how to solve their problem. Well, dude, like that's what we got to be resourceful. You got Google, right? Like they're busy. They don't have the time to do the research. You go out there and do the research for them, compile it away, right? And interview other people about it and, whatever that is. And so I'm curious, dude, with, I don't know how the nurture process is with this, but real estate agents and all entrepreneurs are so guilty of the, Napoleon Hill stopping 3 feet short of gold, analogy. It's like, they'll maybe go all in on Facebook ads for 60 days and then quit. Even though the average Facebook lead is, 6.7 months before they become a client, like they stop prematurely. So I'm guessing with this, just like everything else, it's not okay, let me go in that meeting, try to solve the problem and be done with it. It's continuously working that relationship. So what does that kind of ongoing nurture looks like? So they're not just like the one and done. Yeah. And then, how do you kind of frame it and continue doing it without being just pestering these people too, right, and pissing them off?
Yeah, no, great question. And I think, a key to understand this, because some of the people are like, I just don't have time for that. I need business like this month, right? Or I need business next month. This sounds like a 2-year strategy. Again, it is if you use the old models of like, I'm going to get this, I'm going to know them, like them, trust them. They're going to know me, like me, trust me. Like, that's not this model. Now that will happen inevitably. Like when you pour value into people, that's also going to happen. But again, you're not there to establish long-term trust. You're not getting them to be sold on you. You're simply saying to your people or, to these upstream partners, that like, help me to identify like what a problem is that you have. Then I'm going to go to work on that. Like these upstream partners, the right upstream partners they're already in the conversations with their clients. And one of the things that I found when it comes to, for example, real estate agents and wealth managers. So one of the ways that people bring this up is that they'll say, in fact, is even to have kind of a problem in mind that their industry struggles with, okay? Because the reality is, just like real estate is in the crosshairs of big tech, right? You identified that very clearly. So is mortgage. So is wealth management. so is property and casualty insurance, right? We can all think of the Vanguards, the Robin Hoods, the Quicken Loans, all these big tech companies that are moving in at scale to take and remove well-paid professionals from the equation. So if that's a problem that we're facing in our industry, then you better believe they're aware that it's happening in their industry. And so part of the problem, even if you don't uncover it, even if they don't admit it, you already know a struggle that their industry's having, right? And I think maybe one way to approach this and get quicker results is to say, I don't know if your industry is struggling with this. It seems like it would be. Our industry is struggling with this, and here's how we've differentiated. One of the ways that I like to really set myself apart is to bring in other partners from other industries so that I tap into their value and deliver it to my clients. I've wondered if in your industry it would be valuable if I were able to do the same so that you could bring more value to your clients to further differentiate yourself from these big tech portals that are trying to remove us from the equation. I would be willing to, if this would be helpful, every time you go in for a client review, right, an annual review with your clients, let me know the specific addresses of their properties, and I will do some CMA work that's going to far surpass anything that Zillow can produce for you. And I'm gonna give that to you so that in the conversation that you're having with your clients, you are more valuable to them because now you're talking about their real estate holdings and that the fact that their property appreciated 7% over last year. And are you planning on moving, or what about your rental properties? Are you going to keep those? Are you going to move that towards like a vacation home? Like, they're now involved in conversations they weren't involved in before, which is valuable for the wealth manager. And guess what? At the moment that they are talking about real estate, guess who's in their brain? You, because you created the CMA on their property, right? So it's kind of coming in with some ideas of how you can help to where you aren't just shooting in the dark of like, hey, well, what are your problems? How can I help you, right? And they're like, I think I'm good. But it's like, hey, are you struggling with this? Because my industry is struggling with this. Here's how I've solved it. Maybe I could help you solve it. Here's an idea. Would that be helpful, right? So again, that gets it to where immediately you're in the conversations with them and their clients. And again, you're not having to wine and dine them for years in order to bring the value. You're offering to bring business value. And again, a key distinction is that the typical method is let's create personal relationships that over time produce business results. So what we're saying is, let me produce business results, and over time we'll create a personal friendship because we're going to love each other. We're going to have a lot of fun together building each other's businesses. But I'm here to help you grow your business, period. Not just wine and dine you and create a friend, right?
Yeah, no, I love it, dude. I love it, man. And going back to when you talked about, the old method taking long, and I just recently interviewed. We haven't released it yet. By the time you just released it, it'll be out though. Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith's realtor on the podcast, right? So, and not just there. I mean, all these celebrities and so forth. And he talked about early on in his career. He's been in the industry since 1987. And individual agents done like over $2 billion, and the dude's just a stud, right? And but he was like, "Look, man, like he's like, because I asked him like, what differentiates you, man? Like, how have you been able to do this? And and can you even fathom like just working with like Will Smith and JP? Like, I'm sure that there's it's not all as easy as people might think, but I'm sure there's challenges that come with it, right? However, though, he's like, look, man, he's like, I'm always focused on the immediate and the now, but then at the same time, I'm always asking myself, what can I be doing now to plant those seeds for 5-10 years from now? It goes back, I can't remember who said it, but famous old sales, he's probably still around now, but author, coach, speaker. But the saying is, you want to start digging the well before you're thirsty, right? So he was like, okay, like I was going after my immediate now business, my sphere of influence, open houses, all of that, but I knew that I wanted to, get in with these celebrities. And this just goes right directly to, your upstream a strategy where he's like, okay, well, who's the in with these celebrities? The celebrities don't make the decision of what realtors they work with. They go through their business managers, agents, right? And he did those, became his upstream, partners, and
brilliant, dude. Brilliant.
And then bam, right? But he was like, dude, look, he goes, before I started landing the big A celebrity clients, He's like, I mean, it was a 5 or 10 year relationship. I'm sure there was other clients that came immediate, but we're talking, you know, I mean, the cream of the crop and the you know, actors and celebrity world, you know, right. Those took a little bit longer to develop that trust and so forth, but it's, you know, it's so powerful, man. And you know, people unfortunately are so short-sighted. Like it's always, okay, what can you be doing now today that again, your future self will thank the shit out of you for doing, you know, right. And allocate your time accordingly. Maybe it's only 10% or 5% of your time is focused on that. So you still have 95% of your time focused on what is paying the bills now and the growth now, you know, but allocate some time to that long-term play, you know, with that. And so I'm guessing, dude, like it is, and this is probably doesn't need to be said, but I want to say it just in case everybody's prepared. Like, you develop this relationship, you can't shit the bed.
Yeah.
You know, right? Like when they trust you with their name, their reputation, like you better freaking perform and better make sure you wow them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is your most important client. I mean, the premise of the Upstream model is it's relationship-based marketing, but instead of having a big database that you hope to get a few referrals out of, it's a small database that gives you a lot of referrals, right? So it's just flipping the fulcrum on how much time you have to spend on this big group of people trying to get everyone to remember you versus I'm going to add big value to a very small group of people and they're going to give me a ton of referrals in return. And so, yeah, you treat these people, you know, with incredible value. And I think part of it is just getting clear on what the expectations are of your upstream partner. They're ultimately going to be your client. It's almost taking a B2C model real estate and you're starting to apply a B2B lens, right?
It's just like a lender, right? Like a lender.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they got the buyer client, but ultimately like we're their client.
That's right. Yep. And so you have to ask like, what's important to you? What's a win for you? And I think once you start to create that relationship and that trust, and it's even being sure that, you know, to each client that you serve at a high level, say, hey, you know, what would be really valuable for me? I'd love your testimonials on Zillow, but even more valuable, would you go back to your wealth manager and just tell them the experience that, you know, that you had? He's a dear referral partner and someone to whom, you know, we both refer each other. I just want to be sure that he knows, you know, the level of care with which I'm handling his clients, you know? So I think taking advantage of those opportunities to really be sure that, you know, the golden goose is taken care of.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I love it, man. All right. So, I mean, you unpacked a lot and you broke down, but like, I mean, this is the roadmap, you know, right? The book. And I know most of you are listening, not watching this, but I'm holding up Justin's a book here. When did you write this? Is this recent or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was released in November of this past year. So.
Okay. Awesome. I know it's new to me, you know, right? I just actually got it in the mail, I think 2 days, you know, just a couple of days ago. So I just stumbled across it and ordered it. And it was actually coincidentally before we even booked this podcast. It's just crazy how things work out. So, but anyway, you guys, like, go get the book, dude. I mean, this is the roadmap. And what I love about books is, I mean, this is 20 years of Justin's work that he's spent, you know, hundreds of thousands, of millions figuring out, tweaking, and you know, it's also made him millions that we can go get. I mean, was I wrong that this is free? I mean, I think I just paid shipping, right?
Yeah. Free plus shipping. I believe that, you know, that if you can get a great idea in people's hands, and I honestly believe this is a great idea, not because it's mine. I mean, this is really a whole bunch of mentors pouring into me and a bunch of life experience, a lot of which looked like the backside of that tapestry I described, that now has been formulated into a more clear roadmap. I have other offerings to be able to help people, you know, really implement this quickly. But if I can get this in people's hands for at or below my costs, that fires me up because I know it's going to impact their lives in a big way. And those that are saying like, okay, and I want to scale this thing, I want to have start bringing in multiple 2, 3, 4, 5 to 10 upstream partners and what would happen to my referral-based business. And I've got some other offers that will help people. But yeah, go to upstreammodel.com/book. And that's the best way for me to stay in contact with you and help you implement this model that I think will change everything. It will help you fire Zillow if you're still depending upon them and allow you to go back to relationship-based business, warm market, referral business, but scalable, right? One that doesn't cap out at 30 transactions a year or 50 transactions a year, right? You can do a lot of business because you're only dealing with a small number of people and just pouring big business value into them.
Yep. I love it, man. Love it, dude. Yeah. I mean, so if you think about the book, it's like the book is like the manual that walks you through on how to fix your car on your own. Yeah. Right. But then you have, with your coaching program, it's, all right, you're the expert mechanic that is now sitting there side by side. Now you guys are fixing the car together. And,
great analogy.
Cause I mean, I love it, man. I mean, this is the do it yourself roadmap where, the coaching is okay, I'm going to help craft that strategy with you, make sure you got it right out of the gate, that you're executing on it and so forth. So with that being said, dude, cause you also got an amazing podcast. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, once you get the book, there's also some free training that they get to, which I watched. Your online training is freaking awesome. So I highly recommend anybody that gets the book to check out the training too, all free. So with that being said, where do people go grab the book? If they're interested in talking to you further about, working with you on a deeper level and crafting the strategy and really helping them prepare for the future at the highest level, as well as checking out your podcast, where are the best places to go do all that?
Yeah, I love it. So from my main website, which is just justinstoddart.com, STODDART, justinstoddart.com, you'll get access to the book. There's a link there to it. And then there's also another site that might be helpful. In fact, you get it from the same website, but if you say getjustinshelp.com, that'll put you through a quick questionnaire and then we can set up a time to chat. So getjustinshelp.com.
Love it. And again, for those that are watching, listening, that maybe you weren't able to write that stuff down. I know most of you are working out, driving in the car, whatever. If you just scroll below whenever you're at a point where you can, jot this down, or just scroll below, we'll have the hyperlinks to it where you can just click and pull it up and go snag the book and check out all their stuff. And Justin, dude, I know how busy you are. Truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here, man. This has been a lot of fun, dude. And you definitely dropped the gold on us, man. You brought the fire, dude, man. This is awesome shit.
Dude, it's been so fun. It's fun to find like a brother from another mother who gets fired up about helping people to find their passion. Right. And that's totally how I feel about you, just your passion that I've been a beneficiary of for, at least the past 6 years. And I just love what you do. I want to thank you for contributing so much to the industry and just, again, helping people, GSD and move life to the next level. So congrats to you. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, 100%, my friend. Truly means a lot, dude. And again, it's an honor, man. And those watching and listening, as always, we truly appreciate your support. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching and listening. Keep up the amazing work. Keep kicking ass. And we will see you next time. Peace.
Love it.
I hope you enjoyed this GSD Mode podcast episode. Now make sure you get shit done and smash that subscribe button now.